Welcome to Full Circle with Nona Black TV. Thank you for coming today. We're going to be getting into it. We're going to be discussing some of the rulings the U.S. Supreme Court did that came down recently. One of the topics will be about the student loan forgiveness ruling and also affirmative action. Want to make sure that you follow us and keep posted on the channel as we grow, so you're able to submit topics to yourself as well. Comment, like, share, and subscribe the video because we want to be able to make sure that we keep you posted on the things that are happening. Of course, our channel will be having some upcoming videos on gun violence and shootings in America, and some other things, some other topics. Of course, we will always feature things on voting rights, and how we can make things better for us in voting. Following up on the last video that I did want to give some information because I recommended that we all make sure we know who our local officials are who local, state, and federal officials are to represent us. We should know who they are, know their names, know where their offices are, know their numbers, and ability to contact them. I'm going to just do 2 or 3 here really quickly because I live in the state of Florida. This is our Florida representative for my district, so of course there are more. You can also go on and research and look up your Florida representatives, Florida State Senate representatives, and of course our Senate representative. But for our representative for the Florida 10th District is Maxwell Frost, and his number is 202-224-3121. So just want to make sure if you're in this area, if there's some local issues, even anything statewide, he's in our state representative, then that's his office number. So I'm not giving out any personal information. His office number where you can contact him just to make sure that they know the things that are important to you and what you want to them to address. Also, for our state senate, we have Jerry Thompson, and she's District 15. So she has office, of course, in Orlando, and her Tallahassee office. And her phone office for Tallahassee is 850-487-5015. Her voice IP address is 5015. So that's 850-487-5015. She represents a lot of the Orange County. She's a Democrat. We also have a state Senate representative, and his name is Dennis Baxley, and he is the president pro tem. He is a Republican, and his number in Tallahassee, this is to their office number. He represents Lake County and some of Orange County, and his number is 850-487-5013, 850-487-5013. These are some people who are representing us here in Florida. You need to know their numbers, how to reach out to them, let them know what issues are important to you, see how they're voting and what their stances on it are, and also hold them accountable, in the next elections if you feel like they're able to do things to represent us. That's mine for Florida, and I encourage you to check out who your representatives are for whatever state you live, for local, state, and of course our Senate representatives. And of course we have for our U.S. Senate representative, we have Marco Rubio, and his office number is 202-224-3041. 202-224-3041. And we have Rick Scott, both are Republican, and it's for Rick Scott, his number is 202-224-5274. So make sure you have those numbers, 202-224-5274. Make sure you have those numbers, and of course you can also research them as well. Please do for your local state, because we have to know who representing us, what their stances are, but we also have to let them hear our voices, even if they don't agree with all of the things. They're supposed to be representing our state. They're supposed to be representing us statewide. So that's all districts, all counties. So we have to reach out to them and inform them where our position stands. All right. The Supreme Court rulings. Another reason I was making a point about how important voting was, and voting is, because it impacts our daily lives. You cannot vote and laws are going to be passed. You can vote and laws are going to be passed. But when those laws come into effect, they will affect our lives. We are governed by them. We're ruled by them, and they will impact us. Some impact us less and some impact us more. So we're going to discuss the Supreme Court rulings that came down recently. The first one I wanted to discuss was the ruling on the student loan forgiveness. So we want to make sure, let's get into it. The U.S. Supreme Court ruling, it was Department of Education versus Brown ruling came down. And in the ruling about the student loan, the court ruled that the Biden administration planned to wipe out more than $400 billion in student loan debt was not authorized by Congress. Therefore, they're saying the Secretary of State did not have the authority under the HEROES Act to enact the program. So this is very important. Of course, we know the plan was set up to waive $10,000 for eligible students loan forgiveness for incomes under $125,000 and households under $250,000, and $10,000 if the borrower did receive a Pell Grant. This would have been a great economic benefit to those who would have been impacted and able to receive this forgiveness or loans. Basically, the Supreme Court is saying the Biden administration wanted to enact this, but they did it through the Department of Education and Secretary of Education, and the Supreme Court ruled it unlawful that they would have to go through Congress. It can't be enacted. It won't be able to be in effect. So in order for President Biden them to resubmit for the program to be enacted, it would have to clear Congress and get a majority vote, then go to the Senate and get a majority vote, then Biden signed the bill. That's the way it would have to be passed and to be legitimate. There were two ladies, Myra Brown and Alexander Taylor, who sued, basically saying that they felt that they would be harmed if the program went through because they would not have received the benefit. There was a long discussion over standing and if they had the legal standing to be able to bring the cases. So it's interesting that our Supreme Court did take up the case. As we know, they pick select cases. So it was interesting that they did pick it up. So keep aware, be alert. All right. That's pretty much what happened with the ruling. So we would have to push for our representatives in the U.S. Congress, our representatives in the Senate to bring up a bill to try to get it through so we can get passed. And as we know, right now the majority of the Congress is Republican. So it will not be enacted while they have the majority there. We have a majority in the Senate, but it is very slim. So I believe President Biden running for a new term, if we can win back the Congress and maintain control of the Senate, hopefully grow that, then we can have a chance to get this bill through where it can help many families. I'm sure it would be one outstanding benefit to them. The next ruling I wanted to discuss was affirmative action. Students Affair Admissions Incorporated versus President and Fellows of Harvard College. They also included UNC, University of North Carolina, in this ruling. And Justice. Of course, it was a 6-3 decision, the same as the student loan decision against it. And the opinion summary basically read, race is a determination tip for a significant percentage of all admitted African Americans and Hispanics. The Supreme Court holds that the race-based admission programs of two colleges violate the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment. Okay. It basically stated that they ruled that the affirmative action was unlawful. Basically saying that in this nation, at this point in time, race should not be considered in admissions. As you know, the criteria for Harvard and for University of North Carolina, they don't just determine the criteria on race. It's based on more than that. And for Harvard, it's based on the legacy status, recruited athletes, financial aid eligibility, and race. And then there were more criteria under the one for the University of North Carolina. They did hold those as well. And they also did an essay. They also scored testing, and then they came up with a numerical number for the applicants. And then it was like a 40-person team, admissions team on both that evaluated when they narrowed down who would be admitted, and then they go over it like a second time. So there's more than one criteria. The issue with the ruling is it's based on a colorblind society. And unfortunately, that's not America. That's not the United States that we live in. As you know, America had slaves pretty much since its inception. So in 1619, 20 enslaved Africans were brought to the British colonies against their will, ushering in the era of American slavery. And I found it, Justice Thomas, of course, we know that he received affirmative action when he was applying and admitted for college. There have been numerous people. I don't think using race as a part of determining if students in colleges, one, so they could be diverse, two, so that the unfair ground is leveled and they have an opportunity where a student would have been automatically dismissed or not qualified, will at least receive an opportunity. And third, also, that each individual student has to meet the academic rigor that is required. So a lot of times in these cases, they're exceeding what the academics are, or they wouldn't be considered anyway. As we know, Justice Thomas, Justice Thomas was saying that I want to make sure that I quoted what he said. Chief Justice Roberts wrote in the decision, the university must use colorblind criteria in admissions. And Justice Clarence Thomas wrote, parentheses, quotations, he sees the university's admission policies for what they are, rudderless, race-based preferences. These policies fly in the face of our colorblind Constitution. That's rich. Okay. So they see a colorblind society, and they see where he's saying it's rich. That's rich to me. The reason why I say that is because that's not the America that I live in. There's Supreme Court justices. They're supposed to review prior rulings, the law, so they've changed over 40 years of precedent. And in their ruling, they should be considering every aspect of America. And in now, 2023, it's still not a colorblind society. Yes, we want everyone treated equally and fairly. We don't want to not treat any race unfairly. And I don't think any African Americans want that, any Hispanics, Asians, or whatever. They don't want another race treated disparagingly. They just want it to be able to be treated equally. As we know, when the Constitution was formed, there were enslaved people. Okay? So when I went back to research and understand, and I'm going to give you 3 reasons why I believe it's not a colorblind society. As we know, we have an unjust, supposed to be justice system that's supposed to be blind. But the majority of the people who have been, not majority, but majority of African Americans are convicted for longer sentences, harsher criminal statutes for even when a crime is similar or even sometimes less than a Caucasian counterpart. In that, when I went back to study, and one of the first things that I came up on it to tell us if it's a colorblind society or not, as they've made this ruling for. It says that inmates by race. So it said 57% of inmates are white, 38% are black or African American, Asian 1.4, Native American 2.6. And then I did gender, also broke it down by gender and male and female. Gender was 6.8 female, and male was 93.2%. When you review that and measure it against the population, while the population is 75% white, 19% Hispanic, 13.6% black, 1.3% Asian, Native American, Asian 6.3%. So inmates by race, African Americans, are 3 times higher percentage. It isn't always because what the media wants to lead us to believe is that they commit more crime, is that a lot of times they unjustly housed, unjustly convicted. I'm sure if you've watched any of the Innocent Project, you've seen many stories of people being charged, coerced, convicted, and the majority of them are African American. Also, the next thing, as I look farther into determining is it a colorblind society, the Brookings Education Institute says racial bias appears in efforts in discrimination of homes in the majority black neighborhoods. Know what we call redlining. Redlining is considered to be defined as discriminating policies that consist of systemic denial of sources such as mortgages, insurance loans, and other viable services. Regards to certain areas based on race and ethnicity that loans won't even be provided. And that is happening in 2023. That is not happening in we're not talking about 20 years ago. It has happened 20 years ago, but it's happening in 2023. And the third thing is the killing of African Americans by police was the third thing. So it's not a colorblind society when African Americans are being incarcerated at a higher rate. They're being denied housing. They're being redlined, not getting mortgages, and also discriminated against in loans, in financial services. And then thirdly, killing of an African American by police at a rate of 27% of those fatally shot in 2021. While we only 13% of the population, we're being killed at more than double the rate. In this situation, in this cause, when they're denying, saying it's unlawful to include race in the determining college admissions, it's important and imperative that even if they believe that African Americans were being, of course we know the criteria is more than race, but even if they believe that African American were getting any advantage in this situation, offense, the original sin was we've been discriminated against, stolen from another country, sold, bought, many stolen, brought to Americas, enchained, slaved. Of course, even after slavery, the Bill of Rights, the amendments were passed or whatever, we know that it ran rampant in the South. The KKK, murderings, Jim Crow South, people were still not being employed equally, fairly, treated equally or fairly. The amount of murders, systemic in every area. So it's in education, it's in the so-called justice system, it's in banking, it's in corporate America, it's in many. Yes, we've made great strides, but it's still there. So if any advantage was given, I believe it should be a right for any African American. And that may be controversial, but I don't think it is, because as we know, when African Americans were enslaved originally, they were repeatedly discouraged, killed, murdered, beat, to not learn education because they didn't want us to be able to grow, thrive, know. They were sometimes scared of our power, scared of our abilities, but it was systemic in a way that they try to hold us down as a mass of people by keeping us from having education, keeping us from growing in that area. And it's one of the reasons that the historically black colleges were created. We were repeatedly denied admission into PDIs, predominantly white institutions, because of the color of our skin, for no other reason, even the academic levels. So even just say if an advantage was given, I think that's the least the least of what should be given. The people who were being approved for these admissions in colleges, they were not asking for a handout. They're not asking to be treated less than. They're meeting the academic rigor. They are thriving. All they need is an opportunity. I feel like it's a disgrace what the Supreme Court did in that. The same Supreme Court who we've known, if you look into any news, you have seen where there have been issues about ethics, and Clarence-Thomas, I think another justice, Alito, or one of the other ones, receiving contributions or financial benefit from wealthy donors that weren't recorded, or recorded after it was already found out. And then you can only imagine those are the things that may have been found out or known, not to say that there weren't more. So they're not in a place where they want to be under the same rulings, guidelines as any other judges in America, ethics, and they want to do that in-house when they have obviously issues. But they want to tell African Americans it's a colorblind society and you don't deserve an opportunity. Interesting. Well, this is why your vote matters. This is why stolen Supreme Court justice seat matters. Are you shook yet, America? We need to be. We need to be paying attention. We need to be doing all that we can to do what we can to right some of these wrongs in the justice system. It matters because it affects our lives. It affects our children. And what we don't want to do as African American is to see our generation that's coming behind us go back. I often tell young people, you may not want to vote. You may not care about voting. You may be apathetic to what's going on. But if things could be reversed, when people talk about they want to make America great again, they want to go back to, what year are they talking about they want to go to America great again? 1960s? 1800s? 1619? Back when slavery was legal? We don't want America to go backwards. Thank you for watching Full Circle with Nona Black TV. We'll be doing some more videos on the Supreme Court and hope that you like, share, and subscribe. And thank you for watching. So, at the end of this video, until we meet again, may the Lord watch between me and thee while we're absent.